This is the sixth video on the track tools inside 12D model. In this session we're going to be looking at calculating the cant, and once the cant has been calculated we'll look at plotting it and all the associated outputs. Now there's two places that we can get the cant option from, either from the pull down menu which we've got pinned over here. We've got the calculate cant option showing here. Alternatively, we can come to our rail toolbar sitting up here, go and choose the calculate cant panel from there. So I'm just going to pull the panel over here out of the way. We've got a series of tabs on here as per a lot of the 12D panels. If we go to the design limits in here, this is, if you like, a general overall set of controls for what might occur on any given rail line. What we'll be doing is that we're actually going to be setting a few variations to this which will be put in for this particular string. So we come back onto the Cant design here. What we'll do is we'll set the design speed of 60 kilometers per hour. We'll set the track gauge to 1067 millimeters. We'll then pick on the large button here, go and pick the alignment string and accept it. Now because I've run this in the past, it's coming up and saying that there's already some data on there. Do I want to save it? Yes, no, whatever. I'll just say yes. Whether you've run it in the past or not, as soon as you've gone and picked the rail alignment tab here, then you will get feedback on the geometry of the selected alignment string. Now we can then come across here, and if we go and pick on any one of these fields in here, any of these lines, that then gives us information on the right hand side, which is the station data portion of the panel, and then we can see the cant that's been applied, the element itself, what have you, and as we move down through each of those options it gives us the settings for those. We'll come back and play with those a little bit later on. We'll go across now to the Cant Graph. Inside the Cant Graph we get a little graph down the bottom here. We've got a legend in there which is showing us the equalities and what have you, the deficiencies, etc., etc. Inside the graph here we can move around in there by using these tools up here. Similar to the other track tools, they work slightly differently from some of the others inside 12D. Obviously the fit will make the data fit to the particular view. I can go and zoom a window, so I'll start with the zoom window, pick on that button there, select the first part of my window, drag out, select the second part of my window, and instantly that updates for me inside that little view. Now I can go and use the pan option, so I'll pick on the pan button. Again, works slightly differently from pan in overall 12D. One mouse button, click and release, then drag the cursor down to where you want it to go, pick and release again, finishes that pan. Pick again and release, drag, pick and release, etc. As we said, fit the data to there. If I then want to go and zoom the scales either in the X or the Y, I can pick on this button here. What I then do is pick a point that I want to scale it around, and then if I drag my mouse horizontally, it stretches in the horizontal direction. If I pick and move my mouse in the vertical direction, then it changes the vertical extent there. So I can do both of them at once by moving them diagonally and so on. So the horizontal is changed by left to right movement, the vertical exaggeration is changed by top to bottom movement, or as I said, diagonally drag it out wherever you want to go, etc., until you're happy with what you've got. I'll go back and do a fit on that. The next thing is that's got rid of all of these apart from the plot option here. So if I go and pick on that, this is now going to go and plot the graph to a model for me. So I need to be careful that I don't overwrite any other models that I may have created from these plotting options in the past. So in here I'm going to go and say this is Cant graph, and then of course under normal circumstances on a real job where you have more than one line, you would come to the end here and you'd go and give the name of that particular string that we're working on here. Go and do a plot on that. I can then go to another view here, go and add my new model in here, which is called plot Cant Graph XXX. There is my graph plotted. You'll see it's taken everything that was on the screen. The only part that is missing is the legend. That is not sent out with it, but everything else is in there and it can be plotted in a normal manner. Okay, so let's go back to our alignment here and we'll have a look at the Cant graph in a bit more detail. In the top portion of this, you can see that we've got all of our feedback on what's going on, and at any point if I hover my mouse over a field in the top half of that panel, just above the OK, apply, finish, etc., there is a yellow text in there at the moment which is saying change 4000. We come across to the next field. This has got a red box around it. That is saying that I'm not matching my design criteria for this particular portion. And if I hover my mouse over that, it's then saying the radius is 300 point something or other and is less than the required minimum of 400 meters. Now we can change that, because if I go back to my design limits tab up here, what I can do there is I can come in and change my minimum radius for this particular design, and obviously these things are always going to change with every single rail track that you do, upline, your downline, whatever it might be. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put that down to say a 275, and I'll hit apply on that. I'll then go back to my Cant graph. Now that we've got an allowable radius in here, there is no longer a red box around that portion. So then if I come down to this red portion down here, you have a look down at the bottom of the panel just above where it says OK, apply, etc. It's telling me that my Cant rate of change is 1 in 1214.3, and it's less than the desired minimum. Over here we've got a unacceptable length. We've got an element length of 0 meters, and it's then telling me that the time to traverse that element is 0, which is less than the minimum amount, etc., etc. So in each of these little squares that have got the red line around them, we have got some form of deficiency or something that is outside the basis of design controls. So let's go and have a look now at how we can affect and change some of these things. Up the top here, we have got a deficiency in this portion here. So what we can do there is we can go and change the speed of this particular curve and reduce the speed for that curve, and that should then alter our rate of Cant change. So we're going to go back over here to the main Cant design. We'll go and pick on the first element up here, and we can do this one of two ways. We can either go into the edit speed option here, which brings up a table for us, and we could say we want to go from 4000 to the 4102.655, which is the second line down here, and we can then change that speed to 50 there. We can say OK and update, recalc Cant. The other way we could have done it, of course, is that we could have just come straight into here, and on this side here we could have gone and changed it in there. It's a little bit more time consuming to do it that way, but either way is acceptable. It just depends which way you prefer to go. So if we now then come across here back to our Cant graph, we should then see that over here we've got an improvement. It's still not enough of an improvement, so it would then be a matter of going through and adjusting length of element or the speed for the curve, whatever it might be, to tweak that particular portion to make it match your basis of design. Now the next thing that we're going to look at is how we could go and add some virtual Cant in here. So if we come back to our Cant design, we can then come down and see that down here on rows, I think they're about 12 and 13, we've got a start and end chainage that are the same. So that obviously will give us a deficiency in there. So we're going to go and put in a virtual cant in here. And what we're going to do there is we're going to go and pick on the first of the two chainages that are identical. I'm going to come across to the right hand side over here. I'm going to change that down from 64 down to 54. I'll update that one. Then I'll come down to the next line down here. I'll update that from 64 to a 74 and update that. That basically then has told me that I've now got a 20 meter distance through those portions in there. Now, does that fix it? Not necessarily. I'd still have to probably go through and tweak it a bit more, but we can now see that we are achieving a length of 20 meters in there. So again, it's just purely a matter of adjusting the setting, having a look at your basis of design, which will vary obviously from one individual track alignment to the next track alignment, and playing with it and so on and so forth. If we just go back up to the Cant Design tab here, you can insert a line, delete a line, set it, delete all, whatever it is. There's also a rationalize button here. Now that was actually a carryover from earlier versions of 12D, when quite commonly you would get the start of arc, end of arc, and then it would put the next portion in as the start of the next element with the same chainage as the end of the previous element. So rationalizing it would actually dump all those duplicates out for you. 12D actually reads the data in much more cleanly now, so you're probably not going to actually use the rationalize button all that much. Okay, so let's now go and have a look at the Outputs tab. A couple of things on the Outputs tab that I want to look at. First of all, we can have three different types of outputs in here. We can put out a simple report, which we'll have a look at in a moment. We can do a CSV file, which we can then put into a Excel template, and we can do a Cant setout CSV simple by itself. So we're going to start off with coming into here. We can choose a stationary report, give it the interval we want to have through there, pick on the right button. As I've run this before, it's saying, do I want to amend this? I'll say yes. Of course, if you hadn't run it before, you wouldn't get that dialog box coming up. Now what it's done here is it's come up and said it can't run this because this MTF file doesn't exist. In actual fact, what's happening here is that under normal circumstances, we would come through here and say, right, one of two things will have happened. Either in a greenfield site where you are running this job the first few times, you may have already run an MTF through there and already have built up your formation and so on. That's your variable cost of bulk earthworks and so on will occur. So you may have already run this and you're not interested in running it against an MTF, which is what we're going to be doing here, in which case we then untick this option here. Now, if you are doing a reconstruct or realignment, something like that, then it may well be that you are actually using an MTF in the background and you want to take this Cant data that we're producing and apply that to your MTF, in which case you would need to have the MTF sitting in there, select that, tick that, and away it would go and add that to the MTF. So as I said, we're not using that at the moment. I've just unticked that. Come back in here, go and pick on the right and say, yes, I want to overwrite it. Stationing, do you want to overwrite? Yes. I can then come into here and open that report, and here it is in my notepad giving me my chainage, radius, level, speed, cant, etc. So that's the simple report format. Down here we can go and say, right, we're going to go and use a template for the spreadsheet, which we can go and pick up from our user or user library. This one that we're looking at here is the Cant editor, so I can go and select it from my library folder there. I can go and give it a file. Again, I've run this in the past, so it's going to ask me if I want to update it, but a different file name would get us around that. Do I want to save it? Yes, I do, and it exists, and it's processing down the bottom there. Say OK. Run that through, the report is done. It automatically opens Excel because I've used a spreadsheet in here. Now into this one here, I'm just going to have to go and pick on my browse button, go and choose my Cant data that I've just run in, go and pick on the read button here, and what that does is that goes and reads in my data and puts it into a nice spreadsheet format for me with a template that's already in there, nicely color coded and so on for you. The last one that we're going to use here then is going to be the cant setout.csv file. So again, we're going to pick on the right. The reason it's saying this is amended is because I haven't gone through and picked all the correct buttons. We'll just go and say yes, we want to apply it, run that through there, and then when we come in here and open this, there it is, coming in a slightly different layout from what we had before, just as a CSV without using a template file in the background. So we'll just have one quick last little look at these tabs and just run through what they do. Under the Cant design itself here, this is the geometry that exists in this particular alignment. The design limits, that is our global defaults, which as we've shown already we can go and override by putting in an alignment speed up here, Cant round off, the gauge, etc. If we wanted to go and change some of these, see in there we've got a minimum element length of 20 meters. That was why I went and did that virtual Cant and put it up to 20 meters. It was still failing slightly in there because my deficiencies in here were higher than what that would allow. On the Cant graph, that's where we got all of our information on there. Under the defaults here, you can actually go and put alignment speeds through different sections from chainage to chainage with a design speed in there. So it allows you to define a little bit more information on it. And we looked a moment ago at the outputs. As we said through here, if you were going to go and use the MTF option in applying this, you can give a rail to formation height, etc., adjust the hinge to low rail, a few settings in there. Most important ones down here are the names for the left and the right adjustments that we're going to make so that it knows how to go and put that Cant in onto your MTF. That basically concludes our Cant panel information.